We're in the midst of a new wave of UK experimental post-punk. Post-punk revival. The postiest of punks. I've seen it referred to as the Windmill scene, named after the live venue that a couple of them have performed at in London. I've also seen it referred to as the Speedy Wonderground scene, named after the indie label that a couple of them have recorded records under. These bands include Black Midi, Shame, and Squid, just to name a few. But the band to beat seems to be Black Country New Road. So who are they? And what makes them so significantly different? Where to start? Before Black Country New Road had formed, 6 of the band's 7 members, yes, 7 members, were part of a group called Nervous Conditions. The band was just finishing up their debut in 2017 when allegations of sexual assault against their frontman arose. This led to Nervous Conditions disbanding, while 6 of them would go on to form Black Country New Road.
But I am working on the glow up.
The band's punk rock sound is rounded out by a saxophone and a violin, making them sound very grandiose and cinematic, at least for a punk band. Isaac Wood would soon take over as frontman, they'd gain a 7th member, and then they'd eventually release a handful of singles, including the track Sunglasses.
The absolute pinnacle of British engineering.
A 9-minute epic with 2 parts and a pretty funny, almost self-deprecating dual narrative to go along with it. They'd soon sign with a small indie label, announce a date for their debut record, and put out the single Science Fair. A track with some absolutely mad jazz influences, a haunting, synth-driven poetry slam, and a almost heavy metal outro with some wicked guitar tones. This ain't your daddy's pop music. They also go through a number of musical movements that keep you guessing as to what's gonna happen next. They live in this invisible genre spectrum, and their sound is something that's distinctly their own. And their popularity at the time could be attributed to Black Midi, who was also on the come up and kind of took Black Country under their wing. I will talk about Black Midi, just not today. Black Country New Road would release the pretty straightforward palate cleanser track X before releasing their debut album for the first time. Recorded live over 6 days with My Bloody Valentine producer Andy Savers, the final 2 tracks added to the record take inspiration from Jewish klezmer folk music. The album contains only 6 tracks, like some old school prog records do, but it works for their ever-changing Odyssey-style tracks. Black Country New Road have drawn comparisons to American band Slint, who released an experimental post-rock record with 6 tracks back in 1991.
I'm the only one left. The storm took them all.
A record that would end up growing a cult following within the UK. They share some similarities in their moodiness, spoken word narratives, and anti-pop structures, but their sounds are fairly different. Admittedly, Black Country New Road are an act that has taken me some time to truly appreciate. There has been so much hype around this band, with publications calling the album a significant milestone in modern guitar music, or one of the most boundary-pushing debuts in recent memory, and those sentiments just didn't click with me, at least on my first few listens. Black Country New Road heavily relies on tension and release, like slow-burning jazz or post-rock build-ups. So you never really get the full picture until the album's 40 minutes are kind of said and done. In that sense, the album is the perfect length. It's not too short, it's not too long, but it also left me wanting just a bit more. And I feel like that's what fans were generally left with after For the First Time. A feeling that they had just heard something impressive, let alone a group's debut. And with no one real solidified sound, the band could have literally gone anywhere next. And thankfully, we didn't have to wait very long to find out. They'd released their sophomore, Ants From Up There, just a short year later.
Upon every mountain, just to look through your life.
But just a few days before the album's release, lead singer and songwriter Isaac Wood announced his departure from Black Country New Road, citing feelings of sadness and fear that made it difficult to carry on making music. He commented on how wonderful his bandmates have been, thanked everyone, and even quoted Futurama. It's a huge blow to fans, and the band for sure, but Isaac should do what's best for him, even if it is a little unfortunate. And he should also be proud of what he's produced with the band thus far. Immediately, everything on Ants from Up There sounds cleaner and brighter than their debut. The opener gives me hints of Sufjan Stevens' Illinois with its sort of whimsical tone, but by far the biggest influence on this album is Arcade Fire. Black Country have even admitted that they were obsessed with Arcade Fire during COVID, so that kind of explains that. Tracks like Chaos Space Marine and Concorde have these instrumental swells and emotional climaxes that really remind me of tracks from Funeral.
So I'm leaving this body, and I'm never coming home again.
The male and female vocal duets on Good Will Hunting really recall Regine Chansane and Wim Butler's vocal exchanges. Just go listen to Black Wave Bad Vibrations from Neon Bible, and you'll see those instrumental switch-ups, the dramatic piano and violins, and even those themes of modern despair. Maybe it's because when Arcade Fire arrived, they didn't sound like much else at the time either. But Black Country are a bit more progressive, grungier, and carry a bit more of a jazz influence in their sound. I'll stop comparing them to Arcade Fire and Sufjan Stevens, but honestly, these are acts you want to be compared to. Arcade Fire and Sufjan Stevens have made some of the most boundary-pushing and massively influential albums over the last 20 years or so. They're always evolving, keeping us guessing, and typically deliver some emotionally moving lyrics as well. Moving on, Haldern is one of the most majestic tracks I think I've heard in a while. There's this violin and saxophone part where they're just kind of bouncing off one another, and the keys, these twinkling keys, come and just lift everything up, and it's just goosebumps. And the last 3 tracks on the album make up more than half of the album's runtime. The place where he inserted the blade has this beautiful saxophone climax. Snow globes and basketball shoes have post-rock moments that remind me of Godspeed You Black Emperor and Explosions in the Sky. I feel like I don't want to spoil these tracks for you. Go listen to this album. There are a lot of great moments on it and a lot to digest. I think I still prefer their debut. It's a little more rough around the edges, a little more punk, a little more moodier. And that's the thing about Black Country New Road. They're a moody band. I feel like a lot of what I listen to daily is kind of made to lift me up. I generally like consuming things that keep me a bit more optimistic. And not that Black Country New Road made me sad or anything, it just has this emotional energy and anxiety to the music that I can't return to all the time, even if the music is amazing. But I am happy that I let a little Black Country New Road in. The remaining members of the band have already begun working on new material and plan to perform it at an upcoming European tour. They've also left the door open for Isaac to return if he should change his mind, but haven't announced a replacement for him yet either. They've also said that their next release might not take the form of a studio album, and I can definitely see them doing film scores. You only have to look at Mark's theme to kind of get a taste of that. But they're a group with a beautiful sound. Not quite as wild as Black Midi or as dark as Squid, but impressive all the same. A collective of young, talented musicians with an array of instruments creating significantly different tunes that rise and fall as we do. But don't take my word for it. Like, subscribe, and buy me a coffee if you please.
It's me, the guy in the middle-aged Twitter replies that keeps talking about Black Country New Road. But what separates Black Country New Road from all these other post-rock bands is the unique lyrics, instrumentation, and even weirder song structures.
The absolute pinnacle of British engineering.
Over the course of just 1 year, I managed to release 2 masterpieces. For the first time, feels like a manic hell ride of a record. And from Up There feels like a warm hug, like a sign that life goes on.